Listen to Alfred.
On Friday, villagers debated traffic and speeding issues that some parents fear are putting Motcombe primary pupils at risk, and proposals to put a new academy trust in charge of the school could add to the challenge of finding solutions.
We have a lot to get through this evening in a very short space of time.
Parents and villagers who attended Friday's Coppleridge Inn meeting sat through a passionate and fast-paced 2-hour presentation led by parent Fran Bridgewater. She wants to protect children walking to and from Motcombe Primary School, and also to keep villagers safe. Parking outside the school and the school-run congestion has become a major issue. If an incident happens at 8:45 in the morning, there isn't a snowball's chance in hell that a fire engine or ambulance will be able to get to the village, Fran said. She's championed campaigns to encourage safer driving through Motcombe. She held up a homemade crossing patrol sign used when the school walking bus was in operation. That community-driven solution ended when other parents left Fran to single-handedly shepherd other people's kids to school. Fran is also a Community Speedwatch member. She said that group hasn't resolved the general speeding issue, although drivers do slow down when they see volunteers. She used dramatic pictures of 2 recent incidents to illustrate why she feels the road outside the school has reached a crisis point. In the summer, a Mini flipped around when it collided with a car near Motcombe Primary. One of the mums at the school is still recovering, Fran explained. She was off school for a very long time. And then on the 26th of November, a mum pushing her child's buggy momentarily lost control of her other child. 5-year-old Taylor rushed between vans parked near the church. She obeyed her mother's command to remain still. Luckily, it was Fran, an advanced motorist, who was driving past, and she knew how to react speedily. Dorset Councillor Belinda Ridout and MP Simon Hoare heard those stories on Friday. Were you worried by some of the case studies given tonight?
Well, I think we all are, and I drop my kids off to school at Marnell, or my wife, but I'm not in London, and my wife does it. And some parents are incredibly considerate, and some parents are incredibly inconsiderate, and parents will always think, oh, it's just us, it's only for a minute or two we can park on the zigzag which say no parking, and there's bollards. You could have sort of almost the Grim Reaper standing there with a sort of scythe, and they'll still park there because they think that they're allowed to do it just for a few moments. Everybody has to play their part.
Part of the problem has been the school's rapid growth. In 2012 there were 86 children on the roll. There are 186 today. Breakfast and afternoon activities mean that children can be on site from 7:45 in the morning until 5:30 in the afternoon. Fran says it works for working parents, which is why they're doing incredibly well, but the pressure on the village is huge.
Well, it's a great problem to have. It's a popular school and it's doing really well. I think the school needs to think about how it solves the issue and better educates parents with regards to where they can park and how they can park, etc.
That's MP Simon Hoare, but the Reverend Pam Rink says the people at the primary are doing their best.
The school tries desperately hard to educate the parents. They constantly communicate with them about the problems. They're constantly sending out information to the parents about it, trying to encourage them.
It's ironic that parents and grandparents parking and dropping off their kids are in part creating safety issues for other children. One villager explained that she now drives her kids to school because it's safer than walking through the village. Fran believes it's harder to engage with parents from outside Motcombe. This is where there is a town versus village feeling, she said.
When new people came, they used to be very welcomed. They can't be anymore because we can't keep track of the new people. So you can't welcome them in the same way because the school is so big and we don't fit into the old Victorian buildings anymore. We can't all fit in into the church for an assembly. We can't all fit in for Harvest Festival. We can't fit into a normal assembly for celebrating what the children have learnt this term or whatever. There's no forum anymore that's big enough to hold all the parents, so we don't get together in the same way that we used to. So the sense of community, the sense of belonging, we're all turning up effectively like with tickets to pick up our child or to drop them off in the morning. And apart from the fact that we all queue outside the gates and some of us talk and there are cliques that get together or whatever else that know each other, everyone feels like strangers, whereas we used to have a school when it was much smaller, nobody felt like a stranger and it was very friendly, very welcoming and very all-encompassing. And that's a communication thing that must sit with the academy because that must happen in other schools as you grow them.
She stated that 50 Shaftesbury parents now drop their kids off each day. That led to calls for the Southern Academy Trust to fund a daily minibus to and from the nearby town. When Trust Chairman Chris Brickell challenged those figures, former Motcombe Parish Chairman Alistair Leask demanded that the Academy Trust starts considering Motcombe and not money. Motcombe is getting very angry, Alistair warned.
They keep saying there's no money, there's no money, there's no money, which is rather negative. It's probably true, they have no money, but they haven't put any other suggestion forward where they can help in receiving the pupils that come into their school in a safe and orderly manner. There is nothing coming from the academy, and I think it's very, very sad.
Some parents then muttered that it was all about money, but Mr Brickell says that education funding is an issue, particularly in Dorset. He says it's one of the lowest funded counties in the country. They get around £4,000 per pupil. He said if you're in London boroughs, you get something close to £10,000, and the surplus discretionary funds that they have available to spend on stuff of the nature being discussed in the meeting is so small it would barely scratch the problem. As the MP left to attend a prior engagement, Mr Brickell challenged Simon Hoare to increase education budgets.
Before Simon leaves, how about some more money for education, then we might have some money to do something. Well, it is, I'm afraid.
The Trust might not be around for much longer though. On the 15th of January, the Regional Schools Commissioners will determine whether the Sherburn Area Schools Trust can take on the responsibilities of the Southern Academy Trust. It means Mr Brickell will leave his position, and Fran is concerned that discussions with the new trust will have to start from the beginning.
It worries me lots, the fact that we're swapping to another academy, but I think the Sherburn Academy has a very good reputation. It's got a lot that it needs to deal with, and I think the thing that worries me most about academies is one size does not fit all. It definitely does not fit all at a village school level.
One idea which could require some cash from whichever trust is in charge is extending the school car park. It can't currently accommodate all the teaching staff vehicles, but Reverend Rink was worried that using the small car park for drop-offs would create a more dangerous situation. Councillor Barney Malevra summed up potential solutions aired in the meeting on a flip chart.
I think there are an awful lot of short-term and inexpensive things that could be very effective, like educating parents just to be a bit more considerate about the issue at hand, and just making sure the school enforces certain rules around pick-up, so staggering drop-off or staggering pick-up. There's the talk about having a drop zone by the village hall, which they've tried before in the past. It just needs organising, and it can't just be parent volunteers. It needs to be a movement, a campaign.
And there was a significant infrastructure-based solution brought to the meeting.
A very generous offer of a field put forward for a car park next to the school, which I think really does have legs, but that will come with complications, no doubt.
Mr Coles proposed to donate his land with space for 50 to 60 cars and room for a drop-off zone similar to Bristol Airport. The plot would be gifted should consent be granted for house building on nearby land. But another resident had calculated that the 6-hectare site could house 335 homes if the government's housing density figures were applied. Mr Cole denied that he'd proposed that number of properties. Fran advised the meeting that the offer was complicated, as the fields were home to protected wildlife. Motcombe's also adopted its neighbourhood plan. The planning blueprint determines what gets built where, and this land isn't ring-fenced for homes. Arguably, the event organisers' smartest move was to invite Dorset Council's highways manager, Michael Potter, to the forum. He was shown pictures of the cars parked outside the school and asked whether the local authority could pursue the solutions suggested in the meeting. One by one, he explained why the ideas wouldn't fix the parking, speeding or congestion issues, or would fail to meet the highway regulations. Speed humps and rumble strips are out of favour because they create noise and pollution, he explained. Adding white lines down the road would make drivers less cautious. Hatching marks outside the school or church wouldn't be enforceable. Residents outside the school don't want double yellow lines, but Mr Potter didn't believe that a residents-only parking restriction at school drop-off and pick-up times could be enforced.
That doesn't address the issue that some people see, that there is an attempt at using Motcombe as a route run, a way to shortcut. Fran said in the meeting that a police officer told her that the only way you can deem Motcombe to be a shortcut is if you're speeding through Motcombe, but nevertheless people do it, don't they? So how can you tackle that?
I think it's a wider problem, isn't it? I think the problem is Mere, Gillingham and Shaftesbury, of which we're bang in the middle of. All three of those towns are expanding quite a lot with new houses, and that comes with new populations. and we will have to develop and deal with these sorts of issues into the not too distant future.
Fran singled out the straight stretch of the Motcombe Road leading from the Hollow as the most troubling speeding spot, where she's clocked people driving at 70. She told the meeting it's the fastest, most dangerous bit in the whole village. It's just a blatant motorway boy racer run. Michael explained that a suggested chicane there could create more problems as the road ahead was visible a look ahead and drivers would speed up to beat oncoming vehicles before the traffic calming. Michael said it was unlikely that a footway could be added either. His tone wasn't negative. He explained why the reasons couldn't be pursued, and Barney was pleased that he stayed for the entire meeting.
The fact he turned up, he's got kids at school himself, he understands the issue, and I think we'll get there just chipping away at it. And I just hope we get there quick enough.
Fran had told the trusts, Mr Brickell and Mr Potter from Dorset Highways, that there were experienced fundraisers who could help underwrite projects in this generally affluent village if needed. The Highways manager said it wasn't about the money though. He said it would come down to viability and whether things were worth doing. He pointed out that they were not a shop and they were not doing things purely because of cost. There had to be a genuine need and the regulations had to support them. Nevertheless, Reverend Rink expressed disappointment that many of the ideas can't be taken further.
But it just feels as if it doesn't matter what we suggest, it's not viable.
Dorset Police couldn't attend, but Fran is hopeful that two of their initiatives could prove useful. Operation Snap encourages people to photo traffic violations, such as dangerous parking. Michael advised that the speed can't be measured in pictures, but new TrueCam speed cameras could be made available to the Community Speed Watch in the forthcoming trial. Traffic calming doesn't calm drivers down, Michael explained. Excessive speed is an enforcement issue. Fran asked Michael what he thought was the most viable solution raised in the session. He said that education was key for his team to work with the school with travel planning with parents. The biggest influence of people's behaviour is awareness, he said. Fran says she now has a clear understanding of what her group needs to change.
A hell of a lot of it seems to be to do with attitude. This is what's come out from Highways. It's drivers' attitude, parents' attitude. It's respect for a village that is with open arms welcoming all these extra people as long as we all give and take and look after each other. Probably one of the most important things that came out was the lady who was saying about parental consultation. I think that's a market research study that needs to be carefully thought of because it needs careful wording and we need to ascertain why people park as they do currently and what would discourage them, persuade them otherwise and what would help them. So who's out there very, very early in the afternoon bagging the spot, who's running really late in the morning and why and what would help them. Where I think we have to find the pain and then we have to sell into the pain and objection handle along that.
Mr Hoare felt the well-attended session was useful.
But it's great to see so many in the community and so many representatives of community bodies, both the parish council, the school and the church and others here tonight, who are clearly alert to the issue. Nobody's denying that there's an issue or a problem and seem to be very focused on trying to find a solution. And I stand ready to do whatever I can to keep the focus of Dorset Council Highways in playing its part to think about solutions.
Now many ideas are off the table. Fran says she knows what her team has to work with.
From 24 points, we're distilled down to about 3 or 4 at the moment, and I think we need to then go back on those 3 or 4, amplify them up to 10 or something, and then have something concrete to work with at the parish council and the school and the academy.
Listen to Alfred.